Today we'll talk about exceptions. Okay, this is a new concept. I have completed remaining thing. Now what we'll do, we'll go ahead with exceptions. Exception. First, what is the exception? After that, exception hierarchy. Exception. Hierarchy. What is exception? Exception hierarchy and keywords. Exception keywords, right? Like, try, catch, finally, throw, throws, and we'll talk about checked exception, unchecked exception. And examples. Then how to handle the exception. Okay, these are the concepts we'll talk. First, what is the exception? Exception is nothing but, for instance, you're going to just simply I can say you're planning to go to the trip. Some trip you can say what is this called? You're going to the trip Goa. Yeah. Then by car or by bike, maybe by car you're going. Then what happened in the middle? Something has happened this car. Or maybe you're going 5 people. In that 5 people, someone is not happy or something is happening. Then it's like a trip was cancelled because of due to some reasons. This is nothing but an exception. Then that is the meaning of definition of exception is an abnormal termination. It's what? It's terminating your trip. Trip actually you're planning from here to Bangalore to Goa. But due to some reasons, or car something has happened, or your 5 people, one friend is not well, then what happened? You need to go to the hospital immediately. Then what happened? Your trip is not like fulfilled or not completed. Then what happened? It's a terminated in the middle. Okay, terminated in the middle, the trip, right? What is this? It's a flow, but you're terminating the middle. What is exception basically on basis of this? Exception is an abnormal termination. Exception is an abnormal or condition or termination. Normal termination. This is an exception. Now, exceptions hierarchy, I can say, first actually, who is the superclass of object? Superclass of Java, object class, OBJ is object class. Under object, we have a throwable. Under throwable, we have two types of classes. Further, exception. Under exception, we have two types. Checked exception, unchecked exception. Now, one by one. Object. Object is a class. Throwable is a class. Exception is a class. Error is a class. Checked and unchecked is a keywords. Keywords. Now you know class. Class is a fully implemented structure. Class can create an object. Class can have three types of variables. Class as a constructor. Constructor name and class name should be same. And Construct first statement would be this or super. This is a superclass constructor call, and this is the current class object. Super to call the superclass constructor. Class can create the object. These are the 10 points applicable for all the whatever the classes I have mentioned. That's the reason I told you. If you know class, interface, abstract class, and overriding and loops is enough to learn core Java. Because each and everything classes only. There is no other than. See, for example, string buffer, and string builder concept. What is this three? These three also classes. Now, if you're seeing in exception also, object is a class, throwable is a class, error is a class, exception is a class. Now, why they're defining this? Now, you know, already object have a 9 methods, and throwable have some methods. What is that method? Get class, print stack trace, get message, get message. These are the methods available in throwable class. Throwable class is the superclass of exception and error. Now, exception class. Exception class does not have any methods. Then exception is already told you, I talked about. Exception is an abnormal termination or abnormal condition. Okay. Now, error. Error is nothing but, for example, you have a mobile. Mobile we have 2 GB RAM or 2 GB data we have. That means you can store in 2 GB data. Now you went already trip. Now what you are going? You took already 2 GB photos in your mobile. Now you are taking to 2.2 MB. One more 2 MB picture you took. Then what happened immediately? Your mobile will get one message box saying that, hey, out of memory error, please remove some of the photos in your gallery. That means you are not moved from here and there without deleting that. That means your mobile already filled 2 GB RAM filled. Then if you want to insert one more photo, you have to increase the memory or delete the old data or photos or files. Error means we can't move from here and there without deleting or without increasing your memory. Then error is, maybe I can say some of the types of out of memory error. That means your mobile fulfill all memory. Out of memory, you can delete some of the photos, then and stack overflow. Stack over. Okay. Now in real time how it is. For example, JVM default memory 2 MB to 64 MB. Now you are writing a one project. Now what happened? You already fulfilled 64 MB objects. Now you need to create a one more 10 MB objects. What happened? JVM will throw the out of memory error or stack out of memory error or stack error. What is the stack actually? In JVM, we have a stack area, right? Or maybe you can think, values will be stored into the stack area. Now, if you fulfill all the values, it's a out of memory. See, in the memory JVM 2 MB to 64 MB, stack area, maybe half of the MB, or you can give it how much you want. For example, 5 MB, you can give stack area. In that 5 MB, you can save the variables, then it will fill the variable in the 5 MB. You want to create one more variable in the 5.5 MB, it will give a stack overflow error. Okay, within the memory only, some part actually they'll give a stack. Maybe you can see 2 MB to 64 MB, 5 MB maybe stack. Okay, that way it's categorized in JVM. If you want, you can categorize using Java XMS command, but anywhere in real time, you don't need to worry. It's automatically take care of JVM. That is the stack overflow and error examples are one is out of memory and stack overflow. If you're seeing your mobile only, you will get to know you have a 1 GB data and you're all filled with your photos or videos. Once completed 1 GB, if you want to insert one more GB data or 5 MB data, it will ask you to please delete old photos or old videos or something. Then you have to delete it so that only it's insert. Otherwise, it won't insert. That is nothing but an error. Exceptions. Exception, already I told you. Exception is an abnormal termination. In that, we have a two on a checked exception, unchecked exception. What is a checked exception? What is unchecked exception? Checked means checked by the compiler. Checked by the compiler. Compile. When it's coming to the compiler, is nothing but a compile time exceptions. Unchecked is nothing but it's not checked by the compiler. That means runtime exception. Checked exception is nothing but checked by the compiler. Actually, in Java or anywhere, two types. One is compile time and second one is runtime. Because whenever we are talking about polymorphism, we talked only compile time, runtime polymorphism. There is no other way. Either compile time or runtime. Checked exception is nothing but checked by the compiler. That is nothing but a compile time exception. Any exception, what is compile time exception? Okay, maybe I'll highlight it. Checked exception. CHCCK, checked exception. Checked exception is nothing but it's checked by the compiler or compile time exception. Compile time exception. What is a compile time exception? Any exception which is not under runtime exception. Any exception which is not under runtime exception is nothing but compile time exception. That means what? Any exception which is not under runtime. If it is not a runtime, then what? Obviously, it will come in a compile time exception. Okay. That is a compile time. What is a checked exception? Checked exception is nothing but a checked by the compiler. That is a checked exception. Coming to the compile time, it's known as a compile time exception. What is a compile time exception? Any exception which is not under runtime exception is nothing but a compile time exception or checked exception. You say whatever it may be, checked exception. What is the example of checked exceptions? Checked exceptions examples are file not found exception, IO exception, and SQL exception. And this is checked by the compiler. That's the reason it is a checked exception. What is a checked exception known as a compile time exception? Compile time exception, any exception which is not under runtime, which is not under runtime exception is nothing but a checked exception or compile time exception. Examples are find found exception, IO exception, SQL exception. Now you know what is exception. Exception is nothing but abnormal termination. Under exception, hierarchy, object, throwable. Under throwable, we have a under throwable, we have a error and exception. Under exception, we have a checked exception and unchecked exception. We already talked about error and exception. Now checked also done. Now unchecked exception. Unchecked exception. Unchecked exception. Unchecked exception. Unchecked exception is nothing but a runtime exception. You can say it's not checked by the compiler. If it is not checked by the compiler, means what? Runtime only. It's checked by the compiler. Is known as runtime exception. What is runtime exception? Runtime exception is nothing but any exception which is under runtime is nothing but runtime exception. Any exception which is under runtime exception is nothing but runtime exception. Unchecked exception is known as a runtime exception. What is a runtime exception? Unchecked exception is nothing but a keyword. It's not checked by the compiler. That means what? Runtime exception. What is a runtime exception? Any exception which is under runtime exception is nothing but a runtime exception. Runtime exception examples are one is null pointer exception. Second one is array index out of bound exception. Index out of bound exception. Arithmetic exception. Instead of exception, I can write ex. Okay, so that it's like time set. Okay. Now we already, I think so each and every line of concept we have. What is exception? Okay. What is the runtime exception? What is a throwable? Okay. What is a unchecked exception? Now we'll talk about, okay, we will talk about try, catch, finally, throw, throws. As of now, I think so all are clear, right? Anyone have any doubts up to here? What is exception? What is error? What is checked exception? What is unchecked exception? Then what is the methods of throwable? One more thing, maybe I need to highlight it here. Error and exception class does not have any methods. Throwable have a methods. Throwable have get class, print stack trace, get message. I'll show you what is each and every method, what it will do while doing practice. Now, what is exception? One more time I'm repeating. Exception is an abnormal termination. And coming to the exception hierarchy, its object class is a superclass of all the classes in Java. Under object, we have a throwable. Under throwable, we have error and exception. Error is nothing but if error comes, we can't move from here and there due to maybe, for example, out of memory error, stack overflow. What is the real-time example? Maybe you have a phone. In phone contains 2 GB memory. You have a function, it's a function going on. You took photos 2 GB and you're trying to take one more photo that is 2.1 GB. Then your phone is telling, hey, hi, I'm not able to move from here and there because you took one more photo out of memory happening. Can you please delete your current photos or old videos so that I can insert in one new photo? That is a real-time example. Stack overflow. In the JVM default memory, I already mentioned 2 GB to 64 MB, 2 MB to 64 MB. In that, some of the piece of memory is the stack. If your variable defining so many variables, then what happened? You will get a stack where same as out of memory, but some slight difference is there, stack overflow and out of memory. Now, exception. Exception is an abnormal termination. Under that, we have a error and, checked and unchecked exception. Checked, its name called a check. Checked means checked by the compiler. Checked exception is nothing but a compile time exception. Any exception which is not under runtime. Anyway, Java, right, we have a two types. One is checked either or unchecked. There is no other way. Checked by the compiler is nothing but a checked exception. Any exception which is not under runtime is nothing but a, and it's not any exception which is not under runtime exception. Any exception which is not under runtime exception is nothing but a unchecked exception. Checked exception, any exception which is under runtime, it's a unchecked exception. Unchecked is what? Unchecked exception is nothing but any exception which is not under, which is under runtime exception is nothing but unchecked exception. Examples are null pointer exception, array index out of bound exception, index out of bound exception, arithmetic exception. Now we will talk about try, catch, finally, throw, throws. Now If you know try, catch, finally, throw, throws, then we can write a sum of the examples so that you'll get to know what is the difference between throw, throws and runtime exception, compile time exception, how to handle it, can use. Then one more point I want to highlight it here. Unchecked exception, unchecked exception, how to handle, how to handle. For instance, checked exception. 100% sure we can use try, catch, final. Can use it, you can handle the try, catch, finally, throw, throws. Maybe I cannot say throws, throw. You can handle the exception using this keyword. That means checked means what? Compile time exception. Runtime exception. Runtime exceptions you can handle two ways. One is using conditions. Second one using try, catch, final. What are these conditions? For example, your array is into array, or maybe you can use 1, 2, 3, 4 values. Now for into I is equal to 0, I is less than is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. You are adding 5 here, I plus plus. Now we are printing array. How many values? 0, 1, 2, 3. Fourth value when you come in, you will get the index out of bound, array index out of bound exception. Instead of that, what we need to do? We have to use array start length. Now length is what? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 length. Then you won't get any exception. You can put a conditions and you can eliminate the some piece of code. You don't need to write any try, catch, finally, throw, or throws. Some extents we need to use try, catch. Mixed actually. It's a mixed. Runtime exception is a mixed of, handling the using try, catch, and you can use if conditions, if conditions. Whereas in checked exception, you have to handle using try, catch on, try, catch, finally, throws, throw. Then how to, what is a try, catch, finally, throw, throws? Now we'll talk about. Before going to the try, catch, finally, throw, throws, anyone have any doubts up here? Maybe I'll write it down. Try, catch, finally, throw, throws. Okay, okay. I think so. You are not having anything, right? Doubts? Maybe what I'll do, I'll stop here. You can go to the another. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll stop here. Can you please, attend the one more link I'll send so that this is the one video, that is the one video we can upload today. Exceptions. Okay. I'll stop. Please attend the one more link.